Okay. Thank you to all the recipients of the pins. Great job. Thank you. At this time, we will move along with our program and open dialogue on mayor's issues with the governor's cabinet. And again, we want to thank our Attorney General and our Lieutenant Governor for being here. I will now introduce the panel. First, the Honorable Gurbir Grewal, our great Attorney General. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I want to thank Mayor Casale for that introduction and for inviting me to speak today. I was told to give prepared remarks, so I'm going to give those remarks and then move on to the panel. So for more than a century, the League of Municipalities has helped local government officials represent the interests of their communities. And I'm honored to join the Lieutenant Governor at the Mayor's Box Lunch. This is my first time at the annual conference. And ordinarily at an event like this one, I would talk to you about the priorities at the AG's office. And I'd end with that standard call for state and municipalities to work together. But I'm not going to do that today because I want to discuss with you, the mayors of this state, something a bit more urgent. And it's an issue that affects all of us in our public life. And that's really the declining faith in our government institutions. Since becoming Attorney General 10 months ago, I've had the chance to travel this state and meet people from all across New Jersey. And one theme jumps out from our conversations. Too many residents of our state are losing faith in our public institutions. They don't trust politicians, and increasingly they view law enforcement with skepticism. And they question whether the deck is stacked in the favor of the powerful. And to be clear, this isn't about any particular office holder or any particular political party. It's something more pervasive than that. The statistics show a decades-long decline in public trust. In the 1960s, more than 80% of Americans said they trusted their government. Today, it's less than 20%. This decline affects all of us in this room, whether you're in local government or whether you're in law enforcement. And one recent study showed that 60% of Americans under the age of 30 said that they don't trust their local government to do the right thing most of the time. A separate study showed that 23% of Americans have lost confidence in the criminal justice system. There's no single cause to this decline. And I'm not going to try to catalog all the possible reasons in my time here, but it's clear that most Americans and most New Jerseyans view their public institutions with a deep skepticism. And it's understandably frustrating for all of us in this room who have devoted our careers to public service. And I know that the vast majority of people in government are good and decent, whether they're police officers or desk clerks or elected mayors. They're doing their jobs day in and day out because they care deeply about their communities. And they perform their work honorably and responsibly. But that's exactly why we need to address this problem head on. We must return the public's attention to the good people in government who are trying every day to make their lives better. So how do we tackle this decline in public trust and confidence? Well, at the Attorney General's office, we start by holding the powerful responsible for their actions. We shine a light on those who serve themselves rather than the general public. And we create a culture of accountability, one where powerful individuals and institutions know that they must act with integrity or else face the consequences. And at the Attorney General's office, this drive for accountability takes three forms. First, we're using the enforcement powers that we have to root out misconduct by powerful institutions and businesses. We're refusing to sweep problems under the rug simply because they affect influential citizens. For example, earlier this summer, a Pennsylvania grand jury report alleged that more than 1,000 victims existed who were victims of sexual abuse by Catholic priests over a 70-year period in Pennsylvania. The report revealed that sexual assaults on children and efforts to cover up such assaults were far more widespread in Pennsylvania than we ever thought possible. And equally concerning, that report included information that a number of priests identified in that report had also worked in New Jersey. So for too long, these problems have been minimized. But once we reviewed that grand jury report, we knew that we needed to take action here in New Jersey. We owed it to the people of New Jersey. We owed it to them to find out whether the type of conduct that was taking place or had taken place in Pennsylvania took place here in New Jersey as well. So we formed a statewide task force. We formed a task force comprised of experienced sex crimes investigators and prosecutors, pooled from across our state, and we created a hotline to receive allegations. And while I can't get into the details of our investigation, I can say this: we needed to add additional manpower to staff those phone lines, and we're following those facts wherever they will lead us across this state. Another very different example of holding the powerful accountable came just yesterday. We sued Janssen Pharmaceuticals for its role in fueling this state's and this country's opioid crisis. As alleged in our 97-page complaint filed yesterday, the company deceived doctors and it deceived patients for years about the dangers of its dangerous opioid drugs. It even targeted the elderly in nursing homes and in hospitals with its misinformation. It created front companies to peddle misleading facts, and in order to make opioids seem less dangerous, the company went so far as to use scientifically discredited information to promote its drugs. Janssen, as you might know, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson, the state's largest company, and the bedrock of the state's most important industry. And don't get me wrong, New Jersey's pharmaceutical industry is the envy of the world, with a long history of developing vital and life-saving drugs. But we cannot turn a blind eye when a major New Jersey company violates the law and threatens the lives of our residents. And I can assure you that we are doing whatever we can to hold all wrongdoers accountable. The second thing that we're doing is strengthening the culture of accountability within law enforcement. I've spent most of my career as a prosecutor, and during that time, I've had the opportunity to work with a broad range of law enforcement officers, from FBI agents to state police troopers to local beat cops. The ability of our state and federal law enforcement to attract men and women of the highest integrity and the highest ability, despite the exhausting and dangerous jobs that they perform, it never ceases to amaze me and to make me proud. But in recent years, we've seen a handful of high-profile incidents around this country that have highlighted the small number of officers who fall short of the profession's standards. These incidents threaten to undermine the strong relationship between New Jersey's law enforcement officers and the communities that they serve. That's why, since becoming Attorney General in January, I've issued a number of law enforcement directives designed to promote trust, designed to promote accountability, designed to promote transparency. One of them, for example, requires the creation of what we call early warning systems, or programs that help your local police departments identify problem officers with issues before those problems escalate. Another mandates statewide random drug testing of officers for the very first time. And we're also committed to ensuring a fair and a transparent process for the investigation of officer-involved shootings. These are among the most challenging and the most sensitive cases we handle. And it's crucial for me that they be conducted in an independent and a manner free of any bias whatsoever. And while we certainly hope that no officer in this state uses force against a civilian without justification, we will not shy away from our responsibility to bring criminal charges when justice demands it. And earlier this year, we took an additional step. We took an additional step to bring transparency to these particular investigations. In the past, some law enforcement agencies in this state faced criticism for refusing to release footage from an officer's body-worn camera. My view is that the public has a right to know what happened, even if the facts are unflattering, so long as it doesn't compromise the investigation. So we issued a new directive, one that requires the release of body cam or dash cam footage as soon as the initial investigation is over, typically within 20 days of the incident. Now, by releasing this footage, it's my hope that we give the public confidence that we take these matters seriously and that we're committed to following the facts wherever they lead. Our effort to increase accountability also takes a third and a final form. It involves holding public officials accountable when they break the law. Listen, I know that that's not the most popular thing to say to a room full of elected officials. And I know that each of you work hard and that you act honorably. But let's be blunt. New Jersey has a long and sordid history of politicians behaving badly. After all, it was right here, nearly 15 years ago at the League of Municipalities, that undercover FBI agents videotaped local officials accepting bribes. At some point or another, over the past half-century, the mayor of every major city in New Jersey has been convicted of a public corruption offense. This history fills many New Jerseyans, including many of you in this room, all of you in this room, with disgust, and rightly so. Now, for many years, we depended on the federal government to take the lead in investigating these types of offenses. Most cases were investigated by the FBI and prosecuted by my former colleagues at the U.S. Attorney's Office. But over the past 2 decades, the United States Supreme Court has chipped away at federal corruption law, making it increasingly difficult for federal prosecutors to go after the most common forms of corruption. As the law has shifted, it's become increasingly important that the Attorney General's office step in to that void and expand its efforts. That's why earlier this fall, I established a new unit called the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability, or OPIA. It's a team of prosecutors and detectives who are tasked with rooting out corruption and misconduct in state and local government. To run that unit, we recruited Tom Eicher, a 30-year veteran of the Justice Department who previously served as the chief of the criminal division at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Newark. He's prosecuted a wide range of offenses and officials, from congressmen to city council members. To ensure that these cases are given the highest priority, Tom reports directly to me, and I meet with him on a regular basis to receive updates on investigations. And I can tell you, we will hold officials responsible for their actions, no matter their political positions or their political allies. New Jersey has some of the strongest anti-corruption laws in the country, including an official misconduct statute that requires mandatory prison sentences for public officials. I really hope that we don't have to use these laws. But if history is any guide, we will. And if we're serious about rebuilding trust, if we're truly, truly serious about rebuilding trust, we all will hold ourselves to the same high standards that we expect from others in power. I started my remarks by saying that I wouldn't make that standard call for state and local governments to work together. Instead, I'm asking each of you to do something different. I'm asking each of you to commit to a shared goal, a goal of rebuilding the public's confidence in the institutions that we all represent. Our country and our state face great challenges, and we will not be able to meet them unless the public believes that our institutions are up to the task. We must be willing to use our power to improve the lives of others. And we must be willing to call out others when they use that power improperly. And I am confident that together we can accomplish much. And I look forward to working with each of you on this shared mission and this shared task. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I do want to say, I have to tell you, prior to being Attorney General, as most of you know, our Attorney General was prosecutor in Bergen County, and we were all disappointed to see him leave there. But we know that New Jersey, it could not be in better hands. He is a great Attorney General. I can't say enough about him, so thank you. And now I would like to ask to come up our Lieutenant Governor, Sheila Oliver. The Lieutenant Governor has allotted her time to our Attorney General, so thank you, Lieutenant Governor, so we can move along here. At this point, we're going to add, if anybody has any questions, to please come up to the microphone here and try to, one question, and hopefully we'll be able to get some answers here. It would be appreciated, so more people will have an opportunity to speak. So, yes. Is that I don't think that's on.
Okay. Now it's on. Okay. Again, Paul Anzano, Mayor Hopewell Borough. This is a question actually for both of you regarding the salt workaround. Tax season is coming. Individual taxpayers are going to be looking for advice. I'm, as mayor, very reluctant to say our regulatory scheme is sound by IRS standards. Will you be putting out something for to give us guidance going forward? I really don't want to give advice that earns residents the right and privilege of dealing with the IRS on an individual basis. So I'm asking, will you be issuing something in time for tax season for us to sort of relay or work with?
You know that the Division of Local Government Services a couple of months back did issue an advisory. You know that the federal government has rejected our efforts, and our Attorney General is pursuing that case. So I will defer to Attorney General Grewal.
I could talk about the litigation where it stands. We're challenging the repeal of the SALT deduction as unconstitutional. That case is pending in the Southern District of New York. It's at the motion to dismiss stage. I don't think we'll have an answer, judging by the way the courts work or don't work, by tax season. We're also challenging the IRS's rollback of its, or attempt to roll back its rules for charitable contributions, which previously allowed for the type of charitable deductions that the advisory opinion speaks to. They have not moved forward with that rulemaking. We've challenged their rules by submitting comments along with other states, and I don't know when those rules will be forthcoming.
So, but then, again, speaking on behalf of many of us here, I guess your advice is don't do anything this year, because the IRS right now seems poised to just disagree with us, and we'd be putting taxpayers at risk.
As one individual independent taxpayer, I would say, do nothing.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rita Romeo, and I'm the mayor of Chesterfield Township in Burlington County. I want to thank you both for being here today. One thing I want to say is that I really commend Governor Murphy and the administration for revisiting and revamping the Energy Master Plan. I think that's a wonderful start to address some of the energy and environmental issues that we face in this state. But specifically, I have two questions related to that. One is, a lot of municipalities and areas are concerned about, high-pressure gas pipelines that have been proposed and are coming through. A lot of us have been opposed to that. And then also how that affects our environment like the Pinelands. So is there any ideas or anything in the works to review maybe some of these decisions that were made by the BPU and the Pinelands, and also to look at revamping these commissions and maybe replacing some of the members?
Yeah, I would respond by saying that Governor Murphy has, since he has been in office, not supported certain elements of pipeline moving forward in the state. I don't know if we are engaged in any litigation or not, but this is an issue that we are sensitive to in the administration. We also know that many of the authorities and boards that govern some of these decisions have vacancies. The governor has just appointed a new appointments person in his office, and so we will be moving forward in facilitating and filling some of those agencies.
And I would just add to that, we are involved in litigation with respect to Penn East and with respect to some of the condemnation actions. That's in district court in New Jersey. And then we're also involved in some matters before FERC related to Penn East as well. And so we're on top of that particular pipeline issue.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Andre Saya, Mayor of the City of Paterson, Lieutenant Governor. You're home away from home, and Attorney General, we'll be honored to host you tomorrow. Urban Enterprise Zone. A number of municipalities benefited from it. And unfortunately, it hasn't been restored as of yet as far as the funding is concerned. Can you tell us about the fate and future of the UEZ?
Well, of course, I am a fan of urban enterprise zones, but there's a lot of difference of opinion. So what the legislature did in tandem with the administration, there was a piece of legislation that was authored by Budget Chair Pinter Marin, and it enabled 5 urban enterprise zones to continue to operate in the state, with a requirement that the Department of Community Affairs had to undergo a 1-year analysis of what the impact had been of UEZs across the board. We anticipate meeting that legislative deadline, preparing that report, submitting it, and then when it's budget cycle, as we're coming upon, we will be communicating with the legislature to see if we can fully restore UEZ.
Thank you, Professor.
All right.
Good afternoon. I'm Vic DeLuca. I'm the mayor of Maplewood in Essex County. Mr. Attorney General, I want to thank you for your comments about honesty in government and our responsibility to live up to what we pledge to do. And I would suggest, in the sense of partnership, that maybe you ought to work with us and we ought to sign pledges to work with you. The mayors ought to sign a pledge to work for good government and honest government. On your other point about officer-involved shootings, I think that's the right way to go. I would suggest you move it a little bit down the chain, even for excessive force. We had a problem in Maplewood, and when it got kicked to the prosecutor's office, the impression we have, it's an investigation to go die. That's where they die. And it took months for us to move forward and release the tapes, and once we were able to release the tapes, we changed our whole police department. So I would say go beyond officer-involved shooting and look at the prosecutors, giving them maybe some real clear deadlines on how to respond to excessive force. Madam Community Affairs Commissioner and Lieutenant Governor, I'm going to ask the audience here, how many mayors here or elected officials rely on New Jersey Transit? We need help. We need help. Now, I know this is not in your department, but it is inconsistent to talk about community development and community affairs when we can't rely on a train to get our residents to and from work. They're not going to move into our communities. So it's just unacceptable, and I know the governor's working on it, but it really has to get fixed.
It does, Mayor DeLuca, and you know that this is an issue that I'm sensitive to because for 15 years in the legislature, I represented constituents that relied on New Jersey Transit. And one of my towns, and Mayor Jackson is here from Montclair, Montclair experienced the economic growth and development because of access and use of the trains. You all have read and you all know the various challenges that we are facing, and Governor Murphy is committed to working to deal with it. We all know that we're under the gun to meet the deadline for positive train control and a number of other initiatives. But more importantly, we all need to implore our federal representatives to move forward and stop the stranglehold in Congress in passing an infrastructure bill. We need it desperately, so do other regions of the state, and hopefully in the next session of Congress, now that we've got a different composition, we can all come to the table and reach some consensus in getting a strong and viable infrastructure bill passed in this country.
I'm sorry, let me, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I just want to add that the League, on the resolution, which will be passed tomorrow afternoon, endorsing the Gateway project, and which will go to not only the governor and the legislators, but also our Congress people, to let them know that the League of Municipalities is behind this project 100%, and it's affecting our economy, it's affecting people that work in Hudson County and New York City, getting to work, that live in the western part of the state. I mean, don't forget, this project, this Gateway project, affects not only people close to New York City, but people coming from Trenton can't get into Newark.
I agree with you, but in the interim, as we wait, and we need to organize and get that funding, and I think you're absolutely right. I think the new composition in Congress is going to make that happen. But in the interim, we have to get transit to work better. What they have, they're not operating.
Well, that's a given that they're not operating, and yes, we need to move forward. I think the administration has taken steps. I know they've taken steps to try to correct it, but you got a problem that's been created over the last 25 years, and I don't expect anybody, and I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, they're not going to correct this in 6 months. But I think steps have been taken, but we need to obviously get the funding that you're. Yes. We can't go backwards.
Just on your second point, I agree that transparency promotes accountability and it promotes trust, and that guidance that we issued in February for use of force in officer-involved shootings, that 20-day window, that also gives the local departments cover to release the video earlier and encourages them to do so, and to the extent we could revise that directive to make that clearer, we will.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Governor Tom Hannon, Mayor Township of Cranford and Union County. Some of the largest attended sessions here at the League in the past couple of years, and particularly this year, has been discussions on affordable housing. Can you give us some insight from the administration standpoint, what's being done working with the legislature or within your department with regards COA on how we intend to address some of the issues that each of the municipalities have been going through great expense to our taxpayers?
Yes, the Murphy administration has not taken any demonstrative action as it relates to COA or working with the legislature about amending any existing statutory requirements because we see this in the bailiwick of the court. What we have seen trending are municipalities voluntarily coming to the table and dealing with negotiating at their local levels the creation of affordable housing within their communities. So we have adopted a position in this first 10 months of our administration that this is under the auspices of the courts. They have been working with municipalities and other actors and litigators that are dealing with towns. So we really have not promulgated any other new proposals to address the issue. We're viewing it in the context of the court. And many of you in this room know that municipalities are voluntarily moving forward and coming to agreements about creation within their borders.
Thank you very much. Respectfully, we're coming to, or having to go through the courts because most municipalities feel as though we have that sword of Damocles hanging over our neck, and it is not consistent from county to county or within the same county. So respectfully request that the administration take another look. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sherry Weiner, Township Attorney, Township of Livingston. Following up on the previous speaker, respectfully, we heard this morning, because the administration has not come up with a new approach, that Fair Housing is acting effectively as COA, and they are making decisions as to the planning going on in municipalities. So respectfully, though you think the towns are negotiating, we are being forced by an actor to make decisions which may be contrary to our local planners and to our special masters who are supposed to be working with the courts. But when the elephant in the room, Fair Housing, has a disagreement, the special masters are deferring because it's Fair Housing. So I really think the administration should take their head out of the sand. The courts are not, should not be in the courts. This should be done, it should be done legislatively, and I think your administration should be giving direction and putting pressure to get affordable housing under control, because the way it's working, it's not operating.
Thank you.
My question is for the Attorney General. In many of our municipalities, especially in the urban setting, you see a lot of staffing agencies that have opened up in our communities. And my concern is that once I believe that we have the minimum wage raised to that $15, that we're hoping that this is going to eventually happen, that we monitor those staffing agencies, because sometimes I believe that they prey on the most vulnerable. You see that they're opening up throughout many of our communities. They do provide transportation, but I keep hearing from some of the employees, sometimes they're temporary jobs, and others, they're not paying them, I believe, what they actually deserve to be paid, or even the minimum, their minimum wage is not minimum wage. And I think that it's just growing. They continue to grow in our urban settings. And I just want to make sure that, you keep a close eye on these agencies and how they operate. Because it's more than just giving them those jobs. And you always see the lines of people coming in to look for those minimum paying jobs. And I just feel that sometimes they prey upon them.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We've been working closely with our labor commissioner, Robert Osaro Angelo, to have a renewed focus on any type of fraud or any type of predatory conduct by these types of companies taking advantage of folks because maybe they don't know the rules or maybe of their immigration status or other reasons. So it's something we're looking at with him.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being here. Our Attorney General, our Lieutenant Governor. Thank you so much for your time on your busy schedule. And thank you all for being here this afternoon. Have a great next day and a half. Enjoy.
No, I've got to do a workshop at 2.
Oh, wow.